of this RFP is to really address food insecurity in Chicago. We know that food insecurity remains significantly higher in communities of color. We also know that approximately 1 in 4 children in Cook County experience some level of insecurity or are at risk for food insecurity. And so our division, Human Service Division, is really committed to improving availability and accessibility of nutritious foods for low-income individuals and in some cases individuals that are in crisis or emergency situations. And so, what we're looking for is an organization that has the capacity and also that specializes in procurement and distribution of fresh fruits, vegetables, and essential food items. The selected respondent would be responsible for maintaining a comprehensive network of easily accessible food pantries, including at least one that's within 5 mile radius of each of our 6 DFSS community service centers. Also would be responsible for supporting 53 homeless shelters, 5 domestic violence shelters, and as I already mentioned, the 6 community service centers, and then a host of community food pantries that are um, in the communities that need it the most. So I really want to dive into a little bit of the program activities and requirements. The link that Sarah shared with us, our RFP is started on page 87. So you could scroll there and sort of read on your own. But I will be referencing the RFP book and the pages that you can find the information that I'm speaking about. And so for the program activities and requirements, the selected respondent must have the ability to meet the operational needs of the 4 distribution channels that are shown on the screen here. So we've talked about the food pantries, we've talked about the shelters, the community service centers, and the special circumstances, which could be a crisis, a natural disaster, or emergency. Within each of those, there are some specific requirements that I want to share. And so for food pantries, and this is on page 88 of of the RFP book. For food pantries, we really want to identify and select um, or I'm sorry, we want an organization who can identify, select, and monitor local food pantries at locations that are concentrated in areas that are food insecure and that are considered food desert areas. As I mentioned, at least one food pantry should be located within a 5 mile radius of each of our DFSS 6 community service centers. Those addresses are located on page 89, as well as the shelter locations are also on page 90. And so you can get an idea of the capacity for the food pantry spaces. For the homeless and domestic violence shelters, we're looking for individuals, or I mean, an organization that can source and distribute produce, including fruit and vegetables. And we're looking for that to be delivered every 2 weeks. For the community service centers, in addition to just the basic support and referrals that would go out for pantries, we're looking for orgs that can source and distribute holiday food, such as Thanksgiving and our winter holiday season needs for the community. Each year, we've passed out at least 500 turkeys and hams, and so we're looking forward to continuing that. And again, as I mentioned, the special circumstances, that could be emergency, natural disaster, or a special request. So here's like a little more detail on the capacity and the levels of food that would be required to maintain these pantries. And so for the food pantries, you're looking for someone to be able to source and distribute at least 1.2 million pounds of food per year to these pantries. Being able to develop an order menu would be helpful for the pantries that can be distributed bi-weekly. Um, We're also, as I mentioned already, looking for non-perishable and perishable items. Of course, our target areas, underserved populations, and I've already mentioned the biweekly distribution. So that's specific to food pantries. Oh, wow. Somehow I got kicked out of the room, so I'm back. Sorry about that. For the homeless and DV shelters, again, we're looking for distribution every 2 weeks, but for them, we're only looking for 500,000 pounds of the food per year. Um, the diverse population needs are mostly just around making sure that we are responding to the needs of the community, whether that's nutritional needs, dietary constraints due to age, allergies, or medical conditions. Also, want to be sensitive to religious practices, vegetarians, and veganism. Lastly, the staff and facility requirement really need an org that has adequate space to store up to 3 months of food, maintaining a staff of qualified food handlers, and also be able to monitor the locations to ensure City of Chicago as well as federal sanitation standards are met. Additionally, the selected respondent. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on four. I'm on slide 5. I'm sorry. So for other requirements outside of what I've already mentioned, we've got the requirement to conduct site visits to ensure sanitary storage of food distribution. We would also require that you post written pest control plan and have a contract with a professional exterminator. We also request that you work closely with our team in case there's a need to redesign the program to respond to the community. It could be responding to population shifts, to it could be responding to, again, to disaster or some emergency that's taken place in our city. We also are looking for an organization that can conduct surveys at the food pantry network sites. We'd love to get feedback and really understand how to improve our service delivery for the EFA program. And lastly, we would like for the selected respondent to be able to provide food pantry networks with referral information to other resources such as other pantries, soup kitchens, etc. So now I'm going to speak a little bit more about our performance measures to track progress towards achieving the outcome goals of this program and really to assess the success. We plan to monitor a set of output and outcome metrics that may include but are not limited to what you see on the screen. So for pantry distribution, um, we're looking to have a number of pantries and the hours of operation with a minimum of 99 pantries. And so 99 probably sounds like a large number, but we have a large city. And so we really want to make sure that we can support communities. Number of pounds of food delivered to selected food pantries. Again, I've mentioned 1.2 million pounds minimum. And number of people served. We really want to make sure that we're serving the people in need. And so we're looking for a minimum of 350,000 people served under our pantry distribution. I'll move on to our shelter distribution performance measures. Similar number of pounds of food distributed to shelters, which I've mentioned 0.5 million pounds or 500,000 pounds. The number of shelters participating in the program. We've already mentioned that there are 54 shelters, so being able to support those. The number of deliveries, we want to know how the deliveries are going and the number of deliveries every 2 weeks. And of course, the shelter satisfaction as determined by the surveys that we would like to be administered. Alrighty, so now we're going to move on to discuss a little more guidance for respondents as you guys prepare your response for this RFP. Along with the proposal, all respondents must submit their proposed budget using the City of Chicago template that's provided in the e-procurement system. In addition, respondents must provide the following: documentation demonstrating adequate warehouse and storage capacity to meet facility requirements that are listed in Section C of the program activities and requirements section, which is on page 88. Also, food safety and handling plan outlining the protocols for the proper storage, handling, and distribution of food items to ensure compliance with all local, state, and federal health guidelines. Providing current or proposed policy Provide current or proposed policy and criteria for accepting donated foods for use in the program. And lastly, providing current or proposed pest control plan so to ensure that food is kept safely. And so the anticipated term of this contract is January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, based on the need and availability of funds and the contractor's performance. DFSS absolutely reserves the right to extend the term for up to 2 additional years, with each extension not to exceed 1 year. We anticipate making only one award for this RFP for up to 1 million per year. This contract will operate on a reimbursement basis only. Um, and then I think this is it. I wanted to mention Lauren is not with us today, unfortunately, so I'm kind of stepping in for her. She's going to be the project manager for the EFA project. So you can definitely reach out to her for questions. Just a gentle reminder, the RFPs open April 1st, so this is a great time to get yourself prepared. And I will now open up the chat for questions. And if there aren't any questions, feel free to try and catch some of the other um, presentations. You can do so by clicking rooms at the top of your team screen and joining some of the other presentations. I know that there were some groups that wanted to be able to hear more about workforce, homeless, or our domestic violence division. Hi, Raquel. The link to the RFP I don't think it's live yet, but you can preview it in the link that Sarah, I'm sorry, I'm getting my words twisted, that Sarah shared at the top. So if you click on that link, it's a preview of um, the RFP. And it starts on page, I think 87, 86. You're welcome. If there aren't any additional questions, I will still be around for the next 40 minutes. But if you don't have any additional questions at this time, you can absolutely follow up with Lauren at a later time. Oh, it's Katie. Can you give an example of an organization that would be a good fit for this? Are there examples of past awardees? In the past, we've worked with organizations like Greater Food Chicago. Um, that's to my knowledge. I've only been here for a year, so I know that that was a previous delegate. No problem, Katie. Thank you all for joining. Any other questions? We know that this is a large undertaking, but we really want to make sure that food insecurity is addressed in our city. Thank you guys for joining. Again, if you're interested in other breakout sessions, click rooms at the top and you will be able to join one of the other divisions. Our division focuses mostly on human services needs, helping people with food, with shelter, with other basic human needs that you know we all need. So um, right now for the CDGA process, we're really just focused on the EFA one. But there will be other RFPs in the future. So I will pause. I'm not going to just ramble just to ramble. If you don't have any other questions at this time, again, thank you so much for joining us. And I'll just be here on mute if you do have any questions.
Hi, I think I have a question.
Yes, Courtney, can you put the question in the chat as well as verbally speaking it?
Sure, let me take that out
Mhm.
really quick in the chat. But I'm here from Nourishing Hope. We are a food pantry. We have 3 locations throughout the city, and we receive a grant through CDPH for building a network of trauma-informed centers of care. Are we still able to apply for multiple grants? And have you seen other recipients receive multiple grants through CDPH?
Yeah, so thank you for your question, Courtney. We absolutely have seen organizations that apply and have been awarded for multiple grants across division. So we have some that might apply for homeless RFPs, youth workforce. So yes, we absolutely have.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then Keziah, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct. Can you share more info? Of course, yes. So I can give a quick overview of what we're looking for. Essentially, what we're looking for is to reduce food insecurity by providing um, culturally appropriate and nutritious foods to underserved populations. And so we're looking for a respondent who can source and distribute to our food pantries, which across our city is a minimum of about 99 of them. There's 53 homeless shelters that we're looking for support for, as well as the 5 domestic violence shelters. And then lastly, we would require that there would be a food pantry at least within a 5-mile radius of our 6 DFSS community service centers. So essentially, these four um, service delivery models. One of the ones that I didn't mention is the special circumstances. So being able to provide food when there's maybe a crisis or emergency or something of that nature. So we're really looking for someone or an org that has the capacity to be able to source large quantities of food. So at least 1.2 million pounds for our food pantries, a half a million for our DV shelters and homeless shelters. Also being able to meet the needs of a diverse population. We know that food pantries have come a long way, right? And so being able to provide options outside of the perishable, non-perishable goods, and also being able to think about allergies and um, things like that. The staff and the facilities is also important. We want to make sure that you have adequate space, adequate staffing, and making sure that we're following standards for City of Chicago as well as federal sanitation standards. And so that's like a quick overview, but I see you have another question, and let's see, groceries only or prepared foods like individual meals. For this RFP, we're looking for groceries only. Absolutely, you're welcome. Any other things or questions that I didn't cover are absolutely in the link that Sarah has shared. It's literally the RFP that's going to be released in April, so you get a sneak preview of what we're looking for. It has the addresses to the centers, the addresses to the shelters. Unfortunately, we do not publish the domestic violence shelters just for the confidentiality, but the awarded respondent will have access to that information. But you'll be able to see the vastness of where the shelters are located. Chicago is a large city, so we really want to make sure that our food insecurity is addressed. And given the times that we're in now, it's going to be even more important for that. Okay, here's another question. Would food for shelters be an RFP in the Human Service Department, or does that live in homeless? That's a really good question. So it lives in the Human Service Division, mostly because we also have our 6 service centers that are located throughout the city. They also provide referrals to other services, and so we sort of work with in tangent with the homeless department to make sure that the shelter addresses are correct and we're up to date on shelter closings and openings. So it lives with us. So you would apply directly through the Human Service Department. And that does not stop you from applying with Homeless Division for the RFPs that they have available during this time. So these are great questions. Keep them coming.
Thank you. So just a follow up. So, so food for shelters that lives in the cancer. Um,
I can't, your
um,
signal is pretty bad.
can
I
you hear
can't,
me
you're
now?
chopping. No, you're chopping up a little bit.
Okay, that's right. Sorry.
You can definitely put it in the chat. The food for the homeless shelter have its own RFP, or is it within? I'm not sure if I understand your question. Would the food for the homeless shelters have its own RFP? Or is it it's within the emergency food RFP. So the respondent for this would need to be able to support all of these service delivery models. So the food pantries, which are, just basically community partners that you probably would work with to provide those spaces, churches, community orgs, etc. The shelters, even though it's through the homeless division, the RFP is with us. And so, like I said, they provided us the list. We worked in tandem with them, and then the community service centers as well as special circumstances. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay. I think yeah, I thought that was where you were going. So reading your follow-up, maybe need clarity around emergency food for shelters versus everyday food for shelters. And so I think that would be a really good question for the homeless team to talk a little bit more about their daily food distribution and what that looks like. This is specifically to be distributed at these times. So, like for the food pantries, it's a biweekly distribution. For the homeless and DV shelters, it's every 2 weeks. So there's probably a separate RFP through the homeless division that I don't want to speak out of turn, but we don't provide the everyday food for shelters. Yes, definitely jump to that room now and catch them.